If it was a contest of stamina, you'd probably have to give it to former President Donald Trump, because as I speak, he's wrapping up at his fourth and final rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan, on the last day of campaigning, with the polls opening in just a few hours' time, certainly on this side of the country. So he has been at it for hours, for a man, of course, who's approaching his 80s. Now, earlier in the day, I was there at the 7,100 capacity Santander Arena in Reading, Pennsylvania, for his second rally on the list. He'd just come from North Carolina. Now, the venue is significant because Reading is a quintessential Rust Belt city with the highest poverty level of all American cities. Let's let that hang in the air for a moment. The highest poverty level of any American city. But the arena itself, normally home to the local ice hockey team, the Reading Royals, was barely three-quarters full of adoring Trump fans, some of whom I spoke with as they waited and waited and waited for their hero to arrive. Henry, well, good to see you still awake. I don't know how you managed to achieve that. So you and I were together for the bulk of it. You talked about Lady Gaga, or somebody hoped that Lady Gaga would be at Harris's. I have to say, former President Trump was a bit gaga to me at times. It was a rambling stream of consciousness, unfocused, and I've actually done some fact-checking, factually incorrect when it came to certain issues regarding migrants.
Yeah, good morning, Nick. I think with Donald Trump, we know he goes off-piece. Yeah. We know that often he has the auto-cue, and we saw people adjusting it just before he made it onto the stage, but he was looking around quite aimlessly, I thought. And look, he's a 78-year-old man. He's clearly very tired. Why he's on the stage...
His voice is raspy too,
his
isn't
voice,
it?
And I thought for the first few minutes it was even more raspy, and it actually held up remarkably well during the speech, which was very long, as you say. But, I mean, for him still to be on his feet now...
It's really extraordinary.
It's extraordinary. It really does take it out of you. And I felt with the improvisation bits, which come across quite well on the television, I'd never seen him in person before. On the stage, maybe it was just today, it didn't seem to land particularly well. It wasn't as funny as he normally is. He's well known for his sort of humour and wit at times, and it did fall a bit flat.
Is it fair to... I mean, it's a 7,100-seater stadium. Obviously, I didn't count it. I'm going to call it about three-quarters full, roughly. You'd agree with that? OK. So now talk to me about the crowds in Philadelphia.
It was extraordinary. I could not believe when we arrived there were queues going around the block, and we thought, goodness me, this queue is going on for virtually a mile. And then we realised that was one sort of quarter of the queue.
I bet you thought more than goodness me,
actually. Yes, I did. Yeah, I used a different expression. But it was going... It went virtually on 4 different rows, the same queue. And there were people who'd been waiting there since 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock that afternoon in order to see. So they were waiting, and Kamala Harris didn't make it onto the stage until well after 11 o'clock. So these people...
So how many hours behind schedule was she?
She was a few hours behind schedule because she actually went... It's almost like a game of cat and mouse, this, because she went to Reading as well. So Donald Trump did the speech in Reading. She was knocking on doors in Reading, and we're led to believe had dinner in Reading as well. So she was running slightly behind, wanted Oprah Winfrey and Lady Gaga to have their moment. It's a really sort of strange game of cat and mouse, this, but the queues there were excitable. It was like a sort of Glastonbury festival type atmosphere, with people queuing to get in, people who thought they might not get in, braving it anyway because they knew this was the last rally and they're desperate to see their person get into the White House.
Trump, it struck me, it's almost, I think one of my colleagues called it's almost like a rock concert, in that the crowd want to hear the hits. They want to hear the migration. They want to hear the various lines of the fake media, the fake news. And he kind of, in this weird, totally unscripted, rambling stream of questions, he does play the hits, doesn't he?
He does. And we were penned in at the back in the media. And at one point he does say fake news. And I don't know if you could see, but everyone was turning around and pointing at us.
Well, that's when I dropped the microphone, because there was a rather large man with a defund the media T-shirt. So I decided to become a security guard on that point.
But the hits always land well for Donald Trump. And, I mean, he spoke about a sort of new... I mean, take his Nigel Farage. He was talking about Nigel Farage. Yeah. Of course, a very important politician in Britain. But he was sort of rambling about Nigel Farage, saying that he was the big victor of the election. And it was all slightly peculiar. But, yeah, definitely the fake news media came across well for his supporters. And we heard right from the start, "Make America Great Again," which really got the crowd going.
All right. You and I do this a lot in our interviews. I'm going to give you a sentence. What was your takeaway, and thank you for standing online for me, what was your takeaway from Reading and Trump?
Flat, underwhelming. I'd settle with that.
All right. And what's your takeaway from Kamala Harris in Philadelphia?
It was very enthusiastic, and the people there were desperate to see her, and I didn't necessarily think that would be the case beforehand, but there was a real contrast. But of course, Philadelphia, as you know, Nick, 1.6 million people live there, very sort of liberal, very different settings.
Henry Riley reporting, hopefully to get some sleep.